What is this medical condition?
Well, it's an extraordinary claim because there's only three things really that can cause this condition called anhidrosis or hypohidrosis. Firstly, it can be congenital, which it clearly isn't in this case. Secondly, it can be a prelude to something like heat stroke, where you're so empty of body fluid you can't sweat. Clearly, it isn't the case here. And there's a third explanation, which is that simply he had an injury or some kind of serious condition which would affect his whole body, and again, which clearly isn't the case. And as for the adrenaline thing in the Falklands, it doesn't make sense because sweating isn't mediated by adrenaline, it's mediated by acetylcholine. And there's...
Sounds like you're rather sceptical.
Absolutely sceptical about this particular
But not
claim.
being able to sweat is a medical condition.
It's very, very rare indeed. I've never seen a case.
OK, Lady Colin Cambell, the problem is, for Andrew, is that when you watch the whole interview in its entirety, which I thought was a complete horror story for him in terms of PR, he lies about the little things repeatedly. He says, I never go out socially without a jacket and tie. A load of pictures immediately appear online of him coming out of nightclubs just in a shirt top, open neck. He says, I never sweat, at all. Loads of pictures of him looking sweaty coming out of nightclubs. He says, I don't hug people. A load of pictures of him appear immediately, him hugging women all over the place, right, in public. So on those three little things, which are not that consequential in the scheme of things, he's just brazenly lying. Why should we believe him on the bigger stuff?
Well, I beg to differ. I do not think he's lying. In the picture of him coming out of China White, if you look at the not uncropped picture, everybody else is shining like a Christmas tree. So obviously it's the flash that has created
Where's his jacket and tie?
I think what he was trying to say was that he doesn't usually. Obviously, he occasionally did. And, of course, most of the pictures that have been published are of him in the south of France. Nobody wears a jacket and tie in the south of France. Come on.
But surely it's more important.
Let me finish. And if you look at the pictures that have been taken in the south of France, the girls are, for instance, hanging out their tongues at him, jokingly.
He doesn't seem to be resisting very hard.
But surely if you have a doctor saying
Angela,
that...
let's come to you.
If you have a doctor who is incredibly doubtful that this could be a possibility, that he wasn't sweating, that's the end of the story, isn't it? Doesn't matter whether he's got his jacket on or off, or if he's in a nightclub and sweating. If the doctor says that, who's got experience...
Well, I think if he wasn't sweating on the dance floor then, he probably is now.
Well, Angela, I'm awfully sorry, but an awful lot of doctors get an awful lot of things.
I think that's very rude.
Angela, I mean...
To say that?
To him, yes.
Angela, when you watched the interview, what was your conclusion?
I actually, at one point, got the newspaper and put it over my eyes because I was so appalled by it. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe how inarticulate he was, how he said one thing and contradicted himself in the minute, how patronising he was, how he was full of praise for himself. I'm more than honourable.
I'm too
so
honourable. That's why I did it.
Honourable.
The trouble is, Lady Colin Cambell, it's not funny because at the heart of this is a serial
I'm not
paedophile.
laughing.
No, I know that. What I'm saying is, what really concerned me about this was you could argue before Jeffrey Epstein's conviction, you could say, as many people have over the years, I didn't know what this person was like, but you can't argue it after he's actually done prison time for paedophilia.
Sorry, you all seem to have forgotten that Jeffrey Epstein, the offence with which he was charged and for which he was imprisoned was soliciting prostitution from minors. That is not the same thing as paedophilia. Soliciting
what do you call it?
Prostitution.
If you solicited a 14-year-old for prostitution, you're a paedophile.
It doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is, it doesn't.
It does matter.
And
You're
they were
procuring
not
an underage
14
girl for sex.
In America,
He wasn't.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
He wasn't a decent man.
That is nonsense.
No, it's not.
He was convicted of procuring a 14-year-old girl for sex, for prostitution.
Was he? 14.
Yes, 14.
Well, but I'm not justifying Jeffrey Epstein. I'm not justifying No, paedophilia, I suspect. There's a difference between a minor and a child.
She was 14.
A minor is a child, Lady Colin Cambell.
No, a minor isn't
It's only
a child.
getting away from the point.
Okay, legally, she was a child, all right? And he was convicted of it. So my point is, but here's my question for Angela. So once he knows this, Prince Andrew, this
Yes.
friend of his, he's been gallivanting around with all these women everywhere and all these properties. Once he knows this guy was soliciting 14-year-old girls for sex as prostitutes, right? Once he's done that, you then go back to New York to stay at his house for 4 days.
Yes.
Because
Dinner party,
to
walk in the
apparently say
park.
goodbye to this guy because you're just too honourable. It's nonsense.
It's a complete nonsense. That's
It can't be
absolutely
true.
right.
Who goes to someone's house for 4 days to
Especially
tell
if
them,
it's
I don't
New
want to be
York.
your friend anymore?
Yeah.
Well, I seem to recall that you're sufficiently well-bred to know that civilized people do not dump other people except
Princess
in
Diana
person.
did.
Right, so you-
Prince
I
Charles
said
does.
civilised.
But Lady Colin
They just
Cambell,
changed their
why
phone number.
couldn't he just have rung and said,
Because-
we've had a friendship, it
because
has to come
Prince
to an end?
Andrew is 60 years old. He's not 26. He does things in a different way. The correct procedure when I was young, and still is, you dump people in person. You do not dump
why do you
people
spend,
on the phone.
why do you
for 4
spend 4 days partying with them as you dump them? It's nonsense. He only dumped him when that meeting got into the press, by the way.
No, I think the whole thing was ill-advised. I certainly don't think he should have done it. I think he should have kept his distance. I think he shouldn't have given this interview. I think he's made many mistakes. The fact of the matter is you cannot criticise somebody because they're just not as bright as you would like them to.